Way back in 2014, my friend, producer G. Charles Wright approached myself and writer Mark Masick to put together a show called Tragical History Tour. We did a few shorts, some with Erin Murphy, Tabitha from Bewitched, and one called The Journey to Spider Pool. This particular short film that we made about the murder of 12-year-old Marion Parker has never been seen before. Her story is by far one of the worst true crime stories in Los Angeles history. During the video, I struggled with adding the actual crime scene photographs, but ultimately decided that the viewer could easily search for those elsewhere, so I stuck with just reading the description, which is by far gruesome enough. So here is the story of Marion Parker's murder.
Cemeteries are like libraries. They each contain the final resting places of thousands of people, and each has their own separate and unique story. Some of these people are famous and their stories are very well known. Most aren't, but that doesn't make their lives any less interesting or their stories any less worthy of being told and remembered. This is history. On each episode of the Tragical History Tour, we'll investigate a different LA area grave, from the rumors and legends, supposed hauntings, and sometimes horrific facts. I'll tell you these stories behind the stones. I'm Scott Michaels, and I've been in the death tourism industry for over 2 decades. The reputation of my company, Dearly Departed Tours, is unsurpassed. I do death very well. Join us as I uncover the Hollywood remains to be seen, and you and I go on the Tragical History Tour. Welcome to the Tragical History Tour. My name is Scott Michaels, and I'll be your tour guide today. We're in the Great Mausoleum at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. Since the birth of the entertainment industry over 100 years ago, this mausoleum has become the final resting place of countless stars, Lon Chaney, Clark Gable, Carole Lombard, Jean Harlow, and W.C. Fields, amongst dozens more. In more recent years, Elizabeth Taylor, Michael Jackson have chosen this place for their final resting place. But we're not here to talk about any of them or any other famous person. We're here to talk about a 12-year-old girl whose ashes are in an urn behind me. Her tragic death at the hands of a 19-year-old psychopath in 1927 shocked the nation in a way that no crime has before or since. This is the death of Marion Parker. This is the house where Perry Parker lived with his wife Geraldine, son Perry Jr., twin daughters Marjorie and Marion, and their dog Patsy. It's about a mile from the school they attended, and typically they would take the streetcar back and forth each day. This is Johnny Cochran Middle School, just a few miles west of downtown Los Angeles. In 1927, it was Mount Vernon Junior High School. On Thursday, December 15, 1927, just after noon, a young man driving a dark-colored Chrysler coupe pulled up here in front of the school. The young man rushed into the school office and said to the registrar that he worked at the First National Bank of Los Angeles and that his boss, Perry Parker, had been seriously injured in an automobile accident. The man said that Parker was requesting his younger daughter and that he'd been sent to the school to retrieve her.
The man didn't know that there were actually 2 Parker girls, twins. When he was questioned, he quickly and nervously stated that he wanted, quote, the younger one. Incredibly, school officials removed Marion from her classroom and allowed her to leave with the man. The man was ultimately identified as William Hickman, a former co-worker of the girl's father, Perry Parker. A year prior, Hickman had been arrested on a complaint made by Perry Parker regarding stolen and forged checks totaling $400. Hickman was convicted and sentenced to probation. This was to be an act of revenge and extortion.
The next day, Parker received a registered letter demanding $1,500 for his daughter's safe return. He received several letters and telegrams after that. The first one was signed George Fox, then the rest of them simply signed The Fox. Parker went to the rendezvous spot and waited. The dark-colored Chrysler coupe pulled up alongside his car. Parker saw that his daughter Marion was in the front seat, motionless. The driver got out of the car with a white handkerchief covering his face. The man pointed a sawed-off shotgun at Parker and said, "You know what I'm here for. Here's your daughter. She's asleep. Give me the money and follow instructions." Parker handed over the money and watched as the coupe took off and drove about 200 feet down this street. The driver pulled over, opened the passenger side of the door, and shoved Marion out into the front lawn, then took off. Marion was dropped on the lawn of 432 Manhattan Place. Parker rushed to his daughter, cradled her in his arms, and realized that she was dead. Marion's arms were cut off at the elbow, her legs cut off at the knee. She was sliced in half. Her internal organs were missing and replaced with towels and newspaper. There was a wire around her neck that ran up the back of her head, and it was tied tightly around her forehead to make it appear like she was holding her head up. Her eyelids were sewn open with black thread to make it look like she was still alive. The medical examiner determined that she'd only been killed a few hours earlier. With the recovery of Marion's body, the case escalated from a kidnapping to a murder investigation, and all of Southern California seemed ready and willing to join the hunt for her killer, William Hickman. And here in Elysian Park, not far from Lilac Terrace and the current location of Dodger Stadium, children playing in the park stumbled on 6 separate bundles wrapped in towels and newspaper. The bundles contained Marion's arms, legs, lower torso, and internal organs. The first major clue in the case came from a towel wrapped around one of Marion's body parts. The label on the towel identified it as coming from this place, the Bellevue Arms Apartments, just off Sunset Boulevard, northwest of downtown Los Angeles. Hickman was arrested 5 days later near Echo, Oregon, driving a stolen car. In the car, they found a sawed-off shotgun, they found a small handgun, and $1,400 of the ransom money. They brought Hickman back to Los Angeles and charged him with the murder of Marion Parker. The trial took place here at the Los Angeles Hall of Justice. This building only opened 2 years prior to that, and Hickman had entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, the first of such pleas in California history. But prosecutors threw that out when they found a note that Hickman had written to a fellow prisoner asking for suggestions on how to act crazy in court. Hundreds of reporters and spectators tried to get into the trial, including Edgar Rice Burroughs, who was the author of Tarzan, who was covering the trial for the Los Angeles Examiner. And hundreds stood out here, chanting, demanding justice and demanding Hickman's blood. After 13 days of testimony, the jury took only 36 minutes to decide and find Hickman guilty on all charges. He was sentenced to death. In 1990, the Los Angeles Times published a list of buildings that were allegedly haunted. That list included the Parker House.
This is Marion's death certificate. Frances Marion Parker, born October 11th, 1915, died December 17th, 1927. The cause of death, murder with exterior mutilation of the body. She was cremated at Forest Lawn Memorial Park and inurned on December 19th, 1927, in the Great Mausoleum. So thank you to G. Charles Wright and to Mark Masek and to Vaughn Verdi, who did the cinematography and editing of this lost episode of a show that never aired, the Tragical History Tour. The other episodes with Aaron Murphy, Tabitha from Bewitched, and the Journey to Spider Pool, which if you have not seen, it is a pretty spectacular journey to these ruins up in the Hollywood Hills, and I believe we were the only people, or the first people, fortunate enough to document this insane spider pool in the hills. I want to thank you guys very much for your time and for your attention. I want to especially thank Scotty Burnett, who donated a very generous donation for the Heidi Fleisch video, which I sent to Heidi directly so she can take care of her parrots, her macaws. I also want to thank Aaron Ribich, Chris Rivers, Jules Yu, Redwood, Desiree B.A., Holly, Terry Keeble, and Ann Meyer. Ann Meyer, thank you very much for your generosity. All of you, thank you very much for your generosity. The PayPal donation link is below. The Patreon link is below. And thank you very much again for your time and for your attention. You heard me.